Today I want to talk about long exposure and beach photography. There's certain techniques to getting water to look different ways, and I just wanted to go over what some of those ways are. This was shot in the Florida Keys in Marathon, Florida at Bahia Honda State Park. Um, Costs about $9 to get in, and it's one of the few beaches that there actually are in the Florida Keys. Most of it's kind of just coastal or mangrove coast. So what I did here is these are all considered long exposure photography. It was taken with a 10-stop neutral density filter. I decided to go with the screw-on type. There's also the slip-in filters. I decided to go with the screw-on type because I tend to get pretty careless with all my equipment when I'm actually out shooting. And one of the problems that I found with having the slip-in filters, like the Lees or the Kokins or the Hi-Techs, is that they would get in the sand and they would get scratched. So I just go with the screw-on filter and it stays on. And when I want to take it off, I just put it away. It's much less of a hassle than having a bunch of filters, in my opinion. So this is a 15-second exposure, and what that does is it allows the clouds to pretty much stay static. If you go longer than that, what you'll get is very streaky clouds, which I showed in a previous video. For example, let's see here. Okay, this is a 51-second exposure, and that's what creates these clouds to be so streaky. It all depends what you want. I didn't want that for this shot. So I decided to go with a 15-second exposure at f8, ISO 100 always when you're doing long exposures. And this was shot with a 20mm filter. When you shoot long exposure of anything more than 1 or 2 seconds, you're not going to see the actual flow of water. So right here we can see that there was water coming up. You can see where waves were breaking, but it's kind of a blur, which is nice. And at 15 seconds, the water out here is not going to be completely glass-like or completely milky. And something else you'll notice with long exposure is you do get a lot of reflections from clouds will show up. Here's 15 seconds again. This is just zoomed in as a panoramic. Now this is a 1.3 second exposure. You can see a big difference in the waves. It still doesn't show that much movement, more movement than at 15 seconds, but not as much as you'll see here at 0.4 seconds. And all you have to really do is just kind of, the best way to do it is wait for the waves to come out, release the shutter, and then let the water go back into the ocean, and that gives you the best movement. So this is what you would do if you wanted movement. You can't go over 1 second if you want movement like this. 2.5 seconds, see how this is almost a little nauseating because it's not the perfect balance between no motion and lots of motion. So to me, it's kind of dizzying. Same goes here at 2.5 seconds. 1.3 seconds, not so bad. Again, 15 seconds, totally clear. But then if we move over here to 0.4 seconds, then that's not as dizzying. And then we can go to much longer exposures, for example, 30 seconds here, which is where you get glass. Like this is the same water, except that now there's no movement at all in it. And you can actually see that even though this is static, different things like this algae that was being moved by the water, you can actually see here where the waves were taking it. So again, just wrapping this up, if you want to show kind of more of an abstract look, you would get long exposure of about 15 or more seconds to get something like this. And if you wanted to show motion, I would recommend something under a second, but not anything more than a fraction of, more than 1/4 of a second. About 1/4 would be about right. And if you do anything faster than that, it's going to just look like what anybody else would take with their, without using any kind of neutral density filter. I plan on doing some more videos. Hopefully I get some views and some subscribers. If I get enough subscribers to this channel, I'll actually record myself out in the field to show you how to best get some shots.